So, a lot of you guys think that you are orange pilled because you own some Bitcoin. And don't get me wrong, that's definitely a good step. But if you're someone who still checks the price in dollars every like 15 minutes, you're still running on what I like to call a Fiat Operating System. Or OS, if you're familiar with what that means. Okay, so I want to slow that down because that is really not an insult. It's more like a diagnosis. Now, I'm not a doctor, but think about how often you open your phone. Think about how often your eyes go straight to the number that, appears when you search BTC price. It's up a little, it's down a little, there's a green candle, red candle, whatever it is. I want you to ask yourself something very, very honestly. If Bitcoin is a long term solution, why does its short term price still control your emotions? Now, that tension that might appear is the entire reason that this episode exists. Before we go any further, I really want to be clear about what this episode is and what it is not. It's not a beginner video in the sense of definitions and buzzwords. I'm not going to be convincing you to buy Bitcoin or to research Bitcoin. There is a lot on my channel on why you should care about Bitcoin. So check those out if you haven't already. This video is a beginner video in the sense that we are rebuilding first principles. Now, this is for the person who understands Bitcoin intellectually. You own some, you believe in it, you've watched really smart people on the internet explain it, and yet you're still kind of stressed every time you see, price action. So, you still feel a little bit anxious. You probably feel a little behind. I get it. I've been there. I think every, person who believes in Bitcoin has been there. But it kind of still feels like no matter how much you learn, the line keeps moving further and further away from you. So if that is you, I want to start this off by saying there is absolutely nothing wrong with you. This is totally normal. You are not bad with money. You're not lazy or late or anything like that. You're just running the wrong operating system in your head. Because the legacy financial system did not only steal purchasing power, it also stole perspective. Now, what do I mean by that? The legacy financial system taught us to measure our lives in unstable units. It trained us to confuse money with time. And it quietly conditioned us to feel permanently behind even when we are making progress. This episode is a detox from all of that. It's not hype, it's not motivation, it's definitely not a pep talk. I don't think I'm really good at giving pep talks anyway. But this episode is entirely just a reset. It's a slow, deliberate audit of the invisible mental software that is shaping how you think about work, saving, spending, and the future. And timing totally matters. Now, as of January 19th, 2026, Bitcoin is trading in the low $90,000 range. It's something like 92K, I think. So this is not euphoric, it's not collapsing or anything, it's just kind of sitting there. And at the same time, I think market sentiment is very neutral at the moment. There's not extreme fear, there's not extreme greed. This is the kind of market environment that I think really reveals how people think. So when things are calm, your habits show. When things are boring, your mental model gets kind of exposed. And we are also approaching something that I think is very historic. In less than 2 months, the 20th million Bitcoin will be mined. After that, we enter the final million era. Now, that phrase kind of sounds a little more dramatic than it actually is, because all it really means is this: 95% of the supply will already exist. Scarcity stops being this theory and it starts being a lived reality. And here's the hard truth. If you enter this final million era still thinking in a fiat OS, you will in fact panic. You will overreact. You will probably sell when you really just need to be patient. So let me kind of slow everything down for this and let's get into auditing the software. First things first, a Fiat Brain has absolutely nothing to do with your intelligence. It is entirely just conditioning. So from the time you are young to now, you are taught this story. You work hard, you earn money, you spend money, and you repeat. You are taught that, a paycheck equals safety, that a promotion equals progress, nicer lifestyle equals success, all these little things. But none of that is really evil by itself. The problem is the unit. The first symptom of a fiat brain is the unit of account. When someone asks you how you're doing financially, you probably answer in dollars. And that feels very obvious. I mean, what else would you really answer in, right? But imagine if you measured your health only by how much you weigh, while ignoring your sleep, energy, stress, longevity, how you eat, all these things. This is what measuring your life in only dollars does. When Bitcoin is priced in dollars and the number drops, your nervous system interprets danger. But what if the dollar itself is the unstable variable? What if you are measuring something that's really scarce with something that's essentially infinite? That's like measuring distance with a rubber ruler. No matter how far you walk, the measurement will never ever feel solid. The second system is admin dependency. Now, to explain this one, let me tell you guys a quick little story. For decades, people thought their money was safe because it was in this bank. Then banks froze withdrawals, then the accounts were closed, then access became entirely conditional. Now, I've done a full episode on permissions and conditional access. So if you have not checked that out, that came out last week on Friday. So I would definitely check that out before finishing this video. With that being said, okay, nothing really changed overnight when the banks went through this process, but it did change very, very slowly. If your Bitcoin lives on an exchange because it feels easier, you are still outsourcing the responsibility to an administrator. And any system that has an administrator has a failure mode. Now, Bitcoin's innovation is removing the administrator, and if you do not control the asset, you do not control the outcome. That is the entire decentralization and sovereignty part of Bitcoin. The third system of a Fiat Brain is hyperconsumption. This one is very, very subtle, but I think this one might be the most important. It's the constant urge to turn long-term assets into short-term comfort, selling something scarce to buy something that depreciates. That urge does not really come from logic. It's more from feelings. It's more from this want to get instant gratification, basically. It comes from a system that trained you to relieve stress through spending. This is why we see things like shopping addiction and retail therapy. And I think Gen Z has a huge, huge problem with this, but we can get into that later. The fourth system is career technical debt. Now, this one hits the hardest in an AI kind of dominated world. If you are staying in a job that you hate purely because of the paycheck, while AI is actively changing how value is created, you are patching over a broken income model instead of redesigning it. Now, finally, we get to the emotional symptom. You believe in Bitcoin, but you still feel rushed. You still feel anxious. You still feel like you are late to something that you cannot fully articulate. This one might manifest in the forms of, oh, I wish I bought Bitcoin in 2013. I wish I bought Bitcoin before 2017. I wish I didn't sell the Bitcoin that I had in 2017. Things like that. Fact of the matter is, we are still early, and buying Bitcoin now is better than buying Bitcoin later. But that is not really a market problem. It's a time problem, if anything. And this is where the detox begins. Now, the first step of this detox of getting rid of this Fiat Brain, Fiat OS mindset is changing your unit of account. Bitcoin is divisible. One Bitcoin is equal to 100 million Satoshis. So instead of asking yourself how many dollars Bitcoin is worth, you flip the question. You say, how many Satoshis can $1 buy? Now, this sounds really, really small, and this probably sounds a little bit unreasonable to you right now, but it rewires your perception entirely. When that number goes down, Bitcoin did not fail. The dollar temporarily strengthened. You stop emotionally reacting to price swings and start observing purchasing power. You move from gambler to accumulator. Now, the second step is the core, I think, of this entire episode, and it is the part that I am the most proud of. So, this is really where I think everything is going to start to click. I want you to forget your net worth entirely. I do not care how much you are worth. Net worth is a scoreboard, essentially, that's designed for a system that continuously changes its rules. It's not practical. It's not designed for the Bitcoin mindset. What you actually want to know instead of your net worth is this. If everything stopped, how much time do I have? Now, what do I mean by that? Let's calculate something called a sovereignty score. A sovereignty score measures converting your money into time. It answers one question. If you stopped earning money today, how many days could you keep living at your current lifestyle without going into debt? Here's how it works. You take your total liquid assets and you divide them by your daily burn rate. Liquid assets means money that you can actually use soon. So cash, savings, Bitcoin temporarily converted into dollars for the math. So it's not your house, not your car, not your job, or any of your future potential, anything like that. It's things that are actually usable soon. So this is designed to be conservative on purpose. Now, your daily burn rate, which is the second part of this formula, is what it costs you to live for one day. So that's your rent, your food, utilities, transportation, things like this. I don't want you to include any like luxury spending, anything that's like a want, not a need. So let's do this together. Imagine you have $10,000 in cash. Now imagine you also own half a Bitcoin. Let's take Bitcoin at around 92,000 USD. So half of that is 46,000. Add that to your cash. You now have $56,000 in total liquid assets. Now imagine your monthly expenses are, let's say, $3,000. This is including, rent, food, transportation, and utilities. Now let's take an average of 30 days in a month. So divide 3,000 by 30, and that gives you a daily burn rate of about $100. Now divide 56,000 by 100. You get 560. That means you have 560 days of living already secured. This is not hypothetically and this is not emotionally, it's just mathematically. This is the moment where most people kind of exhale for the first time because you stop guessing entirely. You stop feeling vaguely unsafe. You can see the buffer that you've built. You stop asking yourself what things cost in dollars and start asking, what do they cost in days of my life? That right there is true sovereignty. Now, let's put a meaning behind that number. Think of it kind of as levels. Everyone starts somewhere. If you have, let's say, 0 to 90 days, you are probably in survival mode. This is where most people tend to live. And at this level, which I think most of Gen Z is at, your job is definitely not to debate Bitcoin philosophy. Your job is to increase your cash flow. AI is going to be your lever here. When you cross 90 days and you approach 1 year, you enter this buffer zone. This is where stress starts to loosen because you have this year of breathing room. You can say no. When you reach 1 to 3 years, you reach sovereign status. So volatility stops feeling personal and you think long term. And if you've reached 3 years or more, you have become totally anti-fragile. Even if everything stopped, you would have over 1,000 days to redesign your entire life. And that's not really retirement. I don't want to call it that. That is more like optionality, as my dad says. Now, okay, coming back to the point, this is where AI fits into this entire equation. And if you are familiar with my channel, you know that I love to talk about AI, so of course I'm going to find a way to connect it back to the Fiat OS. The Fiat OS fears AI because it threatens jobs. The detoxed mind, the Bitcoin mind, understands that AI threatens wages, not value creation. Bitcoin is not going to be your income engine. It's going to be your value battery. AI is the income engine that you're actually looking for. You build systems, deploy agents, and you create leverage. Every system that you built needs to add days to your sovereignty score. We are standing right now at the edge of this final million era. Volatility is not punishment, it is the admission price. Bitcoin and the Bitcoin mindset does not care about your feelings. It does not care about your resume. It responds entirely to your proof of work. It responds entirely to your sovereignty score. So if this episode made you feel kind of uncomfortable in a good way, that is the Fiat OS detox totally working. That's not anything to fear, and that means that this episode did what I intended it to do. So that's really cool, and let me know in the comments if you feel kind of like you need to rethink some things, because I feel like as I'm filming this, I need to rethink some things myself. But all I want to say is you do not need permission to exit a broken system. You just need to update the software. So with that being said, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Again, I hope it made you think a little bit. If it did, let me know. If it didn't, also let me know. Again, feedback is so important, guys. I love reading through your comments and I try to respond to them as fast as possible. I need to get better with my response time. I do know this, but yeah, I mean, like, subscribe, share this with a friend who you think also needs to get rid of the Fiat OS. And all that to say, stay curious, stay skeptical, and stay orange pilled. I'm your host, Nikki, and I'm going to see you on Friday.